Many people dream of achieving great things preparing for an exam,
starting a business, or testing their physical limits, but they often fail because they lack the bridge that connects goals to reality. Discipline. Without it, individuals spend their lives in a cycle of starting and abandoning projects, lasting only a few weeks before something inside seems to break. However, there's a Japanese method designed to turn ordinary disorganized people into disciplined machines. This method does not rely on explosive motivation or drastic overnight changes. Instead, it focuses on microscopic movements that are so simple they seem like they won't work. Yet when continued uninterrupted, they create a level of consistency that willpower alone cannot achieve. This transformation is powered by two fundamental concepts. Shitsuke, the art of creating systems so simple that failure is impossible, and Gaman, the inner strength to endure discomfort and keep going when things get difficult. To understand how this works in practice, consider the story of William, a 30-year-old man living in a tiny apartment in Detroit. William was not lazy or unintelligent, but he was plagued by a devastating inability to stick to anything. He had gone through 4 jobs in 2 years, quit marathon training 3 times, and lost his girlfriend because he could never finish what he started. Sitting on his floor with only $47 left in his bank account, he realized that he was the problem. He spent an entire night researching the psychology of discipline and discovered the Japanese 5S system used in Toyota factories. He learned that these workers weren't superhumans. They simply designed their environments so that doing the right thing was easier than doing the wrong thing. He realized he had been losing a giant internal war every morning because he was relying on willpower to fight a poorly designed environment. William also embraced the concept of Gaman, the Japanese ability to endure discomfort without complaining. He realized that for 30 years, he had treated every minor discomfort, being tired, cold, or bored as an emergency that justified quitting. Armed with these new insights, he decided to rebuild his life, but this time he would start so small it was almost embarrassing. He wanted to start a consulting business, but instead of drafting a complex business plan, he committed to sending just 5 emails a day to potential clients. To ensure he followed through, he applied Shitsuke by placing his laptop on the kitchen table every night, with the contact folder already open and the coffee machine ready. There were no distractions and no options. The environment forced the behavior. In the beginning, his mind fought him. On the second day, his brain tried to negotiate, telling him that 5 emails wouldn't change anything. William used Gaman to remind himself that not wanting to do it was not a valid reason to stop. By the end of the first week, he had sent 25 emails. By the end of the first month, despite many rejections, he landed his first client for $300. This success wasn't due to a revolutionary idea, but because he had finally stayed consistent. As his business grew, he faced a major obstacle when his biggest client canceled. But instead of panicking and quitting as he would have done in the past, he simply leaned back into his system, increased his daily emails, and recovered his income within a month. He learned that while obstacles never cease, they can be conquered through unwavering constancy. Finally, William applied these principles to his physical health. A smoker who was completely sedentary, he avoided the mistake of starting a restrictive diet or a heavy gym routine. Instead, he set a goal to run just 400 meters a day, 1 lap around the block. It was a distance so short that others might laugh, but because it was ridiculously easy, he was able to do it every single day. Even when it rained, he applied the Zen philosophy that practice does not negotiate with the weather. Over several months, he gradually increased the distance from 400 meters to 5 kilometers. He didn't become an athlete through intensity, but through frequency. This journey demonstrates that the secret to a disciplined life is not found in grand gestures, but in respecting your limits, designing your environment for success, and understanding that discomfort is merely a temporary state on the path to achievement. 9 months after embarking on a radical experiment in self-discipline, William's life had undergone a staggering transformation. He was now running 10 kilometers 3 times every week, and his professional life was thriving. He had successfully moved out of his dilapidated, miserable apartment into a residence that reflected his new standard of living. However, the physical changes were merely symptoms of a much deeper internal shift. He had become a completely different human being. William realized that his business hadn't grown by luck, but because he sent 5 emails every single day without fail. His physical health hadn't improved by chance, but because he ran every day. He understood a fundamental truth. His life changed because he refused to allow gaps to form in his consistency. He lived by a philosophy that combined the systems of the external world with the strength of the internal mind. This resolve was put to the ultimate test in the 10th month when William was offered a high-paying role on a massive project. While the compensation was excellent, it required him to travel to another state for 3 weeks. This meant leaving his gym, his specific street routes, and the controlled environment of his apartment. To the old William, this lack of structure would have been the perfect excuse to abandon his progress and spiral back into inconsistency. But the new William recognized this as the definitive trial of his character. He accepted the project and immediately began adapting his system to the new environment. When he found he couldn't run on his usual street, he used the hotel treadmill. When his schedule shifted, he simply woke up an hour earlier. He realized that the concept of Shitsuke is not about maintaining a perfect environment. It is about the discipline to adapt your system to any environment, no matter how chaotic. Through this challenge, William discovered the profound synergy between Shitsuke and Gaman. He learned that while Shitsuke focuses on creating external triggers and automated behaviors to make success easier, Gaman is the internal fortitude that keeps a person moving when the external world falls apart. While he designed his environment to foster good habits, he was simultaneously brewing an internal resilience. Every morning his body resisted, and every day he didn't feel like working, he did it anyway. This built a level of self-trust that no external system could provide. By the end of his 3-week trip, he realized he no longer needed the perfect conditions to succeed. The discipline was no longer around him. It was inside him. He had transitioned from someone who relied on a routine to someone whose identity was the routine. A year into his journey, the tangible results were undeniable. William was earning more in a single month than he previously earned in half a year. He managed a stable roster of 10 regular clients and had clocked over 800 kilometers of running. More importantly, he possessed a quiet, unshakable confidence born of evidence. He knew he was a man of his word because he had 365 days of proof. In a world where most people are inconsistent and unreliable, William's reputation for following through became worth its weight in gold. He learned, as many behavioral psychologists observe, that discipline is actually about eliminating the exhaustion of decision-making. By automating his small, daily actions, he saved his mental energy for the high-stakes decisions that truly moved the needle in his life and business. 18 months later, William stood as a testament to the power of ridiculously small beginnings. He explained to those who asked that his success wasn't built on grand, heroic gestures but on tiny actions repeated until they became an automated part of his soul. He hadn't become a world-famous celebrity or an ultramarathoner, but he had achieved something far more valuable. He had gained total control over his own destiny. He was no longer a prisoner of his own moods or a slave to a boss. His consistency even changed his social circle, as he naturally began to attract other high performers who understood that growth comes from irritating consistency rather than temporary bursts of motivation. The philosophy William left behind is a roadmap for anyone at rock bottom. It begins with starting so small that failure is impossible, such as 5 emails or a 400-meter run. It prioritizes consistency over intensity, recognizing that 800 imperfect workouts are vastly superior to a handful of perfect ones. It teaches that one must never create gaps, because a single missed day is a portal through which the old, unsuccessful self can crawl back in. Most importantly, it teaches that we are not what we say, but what we repeatedly do. Every small action is a vote for the person we wish to become. By the time William looked back at his old self, the man with only $47 in his bank account, he realized that person had died a slow death, replaced 1 email and 1 run at a time by a man of honor, dignity, and unwavering discipline.